The Unspoken Goodbye. In a quiet town nestled between the hills, there lived a girl named Lila. She was a painter, her hands always stained with splashes of color from her easel. She had learned to find beauty in small things, the way the sunlight filtered through the trees, the quiet rustling of leaves, the soft hum of the world around her. But there was one thing that brought more color into her life than any paintbrush ever could. His name was Ethan. They had met in high school, their first encounter under the big oak tree near the old library. Ethan had been reading, lost in the pages of a book. Lila, ever curious, had asked him about the novel, and they quickly found a rhythm in their conversations. From there, a bond had bloomed, fragile at first, like the early morning mist that eventually burns off with the sun. But as the months passed, the friendship deepened. Their connection became undeniable, the way their laughter echoed in empty corridors, the way they held hands during movies, the way their eyes spoke things they never said out loud. They didn't need words to communicate, they simply understood each other. Ethan was the light that seemed to chase away all the shadows in Lila's life. And Lila was the steady warmth that Ethan never knew he needed. Together, they were perfect, two halves of a whole, pieces that fit effortlessly. Then, one fateful autumn day, something shifted. Ethan's childhood friend, Sophia, returned to town after several years of being away. A whirlwind of blonde hair and infectious laughter, Sophia was everything Ethan had once been close to. She had been the girl who lived next door, the one he grew up with, the one who knew his secrets and shared his dreams. Their bond had always been innocent, but it had been there, the kind of friendship that had been the foundation of Ethan's childhood. At first, Lila wasn't concerned. She had heard about Sophia from Ethan, knew how important she had been in his life. But as the days went on, something shifted in the air, like the tension before a storm. Sophia was magnetic. She had this effortless charm, a carefree spirit that made everyone around her feel alive. And Ethan, her best friend from the past, seemed to gravitate toward her without even realizing it. Their conversations became longer, their laughter louder. Lila noticed the way Ethan would look at Sophia with a softness in his eyes that she hadn't seen before. And, as much as she hated to admit it, a part of her began to feel invisible. One evening, as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows over the town, Ethan and Sophia sat together on the porch of Lila's house. They talked about the past, about childhood memories, about everything that had happened in the years they'd been apart. Lila sat a few steps away, her paintbrush still in her hand, but the world around her seemed to fade into the background. She painted, but her strokes felt heavy, each one pulling at her chest like a knot that couldn't be undone. After a while, Sophia stood and stretched, glancing at Lila. "I should go," she said lightly. "I'll see you soon, Ethan?" "Of course," Ethan replied, his voice warm with familiarity. He stood to hug her, and Lila watched as they exchanged a lingering embrace. That hug, so natural, so easy, crushed something inside of her. She forced herself to smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. The night passed quietly, but it was different. Ethan and Sophia began spending more time together, and Lila felt herself drifting further away. When they weren't together, Ethan spoke of Sophia often, his words filled with nostalgia, with longing for the simpler days of their childhood. Lila tried to stay calm, tried to remind herself that this was just a phase, that nothing could break the bond she shared with Ethan. But deep inside, she knew. One evening, she could no longer keep the hurt bottled up. She found Ethan by the old oak tree, the place where they had first met. The sky above was painted with soft hues of pink and orange, the air cool but comforting. She had to say something, had to ask the question that had been gnawing at her heart for weeks. "Ethan," Lila began, her voice barely a whisper, "do you love me?" He turned to her, his eyes soft and kind, but there was a hesitation there. A pause that seemed to stretch on forever. "Of course I do," he replied, his voice steady. "You know that." But something in his eyes told a different story. It wasn't the same certainty that had once filled their conversations, their shared moments. Lila's heart clenched. "Then why do you look at Sophia like that?" she asked, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. She had no idea how it sounded, desperate, childish, maybe even petty. But she couldn't help herself. Ethan looked at her, his face a mixture of confusion and regret. Lila, I don't know. Sophia and I have history, and I just... He trailed off, searching for words that didn't seem to come. Lila swallowed the lump in her throat. You don't have to explain. I understand. But she didn't. Not really. Days passed, and the distance between them grew. Ethan's connection to Sophia was undeniable, and no matter how much Lila tried, no matter how deeply she loved him, she couldn't change the way he looked at her. He was slipping away, pulled back into the gravity of his past, and no matter how much she tried to hold on, her fingers kept slipping through the cracks. One rainy afternoon, Lila sat alone in her studio, staring at the canvas in front of her. She had painted the image of Ethan and Sophia, laughing together under the oak tree. It was a perfect moment, and yet, the more she looked at it, the more it seemed to mock her. Ethan came by later, his voice low. Lila, we need to talk. She knew what he was going to say, but hearing the words felt like a sharp stab to her chest. I think I need to explore things with Sophia, he said softly, avoiding her eyes. I can't help how I feel. I'm sorry. Lila nodded, even though the world inside her was shattering. I understand. And she did. She had no choice but to understand. Because love, no matter how deep or how pure, isn't always enough to keep two people together. As Ethan walked away, Lila closed her eyes and let the tears fall freely. She loved him, always had. But sometimes, love isn't enough to stop someone from slipping through your fingers. Sometimes, no matter how hard you hold on, they drift away. The next day, Lila went to the old oak tree. She stood there alone, feeling the weight of the silence. The sun was setting again, painting the sky with vibrant hues of gold and orange. It was beautiful, but it didn't bring her the same peace it once had. As she reached out to touch the rough bark, she whispered to the wind, I'll always love you, Ethan. And though he would never hear her, Lila knew that part of her heart would always belong to him, no matter where life took them.